Buffalo. If you don't know a little bit about me, I am an HBCU graduate. I'm a proud advocate of HBCUs. I went to Howard University, and I'm now getting my PhD at Southern University. Aside from being Miss Buffalo, I also am an entrepreneur, so I'm all about mindfulness and meditation, and that was my social impact initiative for winning Miss Buffalo. It's based upon bringing mindfulness and meditation to as many underserved communities as possible. So that is what I'm about. I'm really excited to be here with y'all to talk about this movie. So I'm going to introduce our panelists. I'm going to start over here. Okay, so we have Jillian Hanesworth, who is Buffalo's Poet Laureate, the one and only. Jillian's been writing since she was 7 years old, and she's performed in Baltimore, Toronto, and New York City. She's the founder of Literacy Freedom LLC, which is committed to social change through arts. Welcome, Jillian. It's good to see you. And then we have Alexa Wajed, who is a visual artist, jewelry designer, and trained chef. She's a wife, a mother of two. She owned a greeting card design company with her husband and later opened an art gallery called Gallery 51. They currently own Eat Off Art, pushing transformative experiences for professional artists. It's nice to meet you. Welcome. Of course, we have Miss Karima Amin, a storyteller, founder of Spin a Storyteller and Tradition Keepers and Daughters of Creative Sounds. She is a mother of three and taught in Buffalo Public Schools for 24 years. She became a storyteller by traveling from Buffalo to New Orleans and Africa. Welcome. Thank you for being here. Then we have Shyana Broughton, a birth doula and mother of three. She started the nonprofit organization Our Mommie Village back in 2020 and has since won second place in a pitch competition with E for All and Fan Favorite. Shyana actually got started being a doula when her sister became a young mother at the age of 17. So now her first doula baby is 20 years old. Wow. Thank you for being here. Hi, Khari. Khari is an honors student at Global Concept High School. She loves hairstyling and wants to attend an HBCU. I love that. Which HBCU are you thinking about? Okay, that's a good choice. Any HBCU is a good choice. And of course, last but not least, we have Phylicia, who is the owner of Black Monarchy, a multicultural inspired fashion boutique. Phylicia is a mother of two and is also the creative director of I Am Phenomenal LLC. She was born in Brooklyn but moved to Buffalo right after college, and she is the 2017 winner of 43 North's The Pitch competition. Welcome. So since everyone in the room has already seen this movie, of course, my first question for you ladies is, what was the biggest thing that resonated with you? And I know that's a lofty question, it's heavy. But what was the biggest thing, if you could think of one word or like a theme concept for this movie, how did you walk away feeling? If anybody wants to.
Proud. I was proud. I was absolutely proud because it was such a, you want me to take it?
Yes.
It was one of the first times I've seen all of the cast be Black women. And I was there with my daughter and my son, so it was really impactful for me to be there with them, for them to see it. Because I'm proud every day, so it's really nice for them to see it at other levels.
I have 3 words. I have beautiful, painful, and empowering. And those are the things that I had just, in my few decades of life, seeing so many things that I've seen. But to be able to be in front of a screen with beautiful, Black women. Not women with weave and not women with perm, but natural hair, braids, beauty, but showing their strength and showing their softness all at once.
More than anything, I was really impressed with the sisterhood And that's the first word that comes to my mind, was the sisterhood. How they loved each other, supported each other, stuck with each other, lifted each other up, and worked together to build something that was both wonderful and beautiful.
Beautiful.
So for me, I felt powerful after watching the movie. And the other word that comes to mind is protected. I felt like there's no fight that I can't fight, and that if I have other people around me, especially Black women around me, there's no way that we wouldn't be able to conquer whatever it is we're facing. So.
I think I felt like it was more of, I was happy. I was kind of undecided, almost kind of, because I've never seen anything like it, so my feelings were all over the place, almost. So, but I was really happy. I loved the movie. Yeah. So.
For me, I would say it was kind of heavy. Heavy in the sense that there's been like a renaissance that's been happening with Black women finally getting space. We've been taking up unapologetic space, and it has been getting backlash from even brothers and sisters that look like us, some that don't look like us. But for me, it was heavy because it was like, you know, Black women are so multifaceted, where we just have so much, we carry so much, we do so much, and it's just, unless you've lived that experience, you don't know. So it's like you cry, you laugh, and it's almost like, well, why is it always up? Why is it so heavy? Why are we running into the fire? And luckily enough, we get to run back out. So it was beautiful, it was empowering. I don't expect anything less from Black women, but for me, it was just like, here we are again, but taking up the space.
There's definitely an array of emotions that come out throughout that movie. And a lot of you guys touched a little bit on the heavy emotions or the pain that was felt. So my question for you ladies is, how do we navigate those feelings whenever we're seeing our trauma on screen, even whenever it's being used to uplift us? How do we go about handling ourselves and reconciling our feelings when our history is shown that way?
So my word or my phrase of the year is just feel it and just be you. You know, we've all gone through so many different things on this panel alone, let alone everyone in the audience. And we've always been taught or shown as a community not to feel, not to show, because you don't want to show your weakness and your vulnerability. And I think that's very important to understand what feelings are, and to really understand what you're dealing with is to be able to show that vulnerability and to share it. Because you're not only liberating yourself, but you're liberating those around you to allow them to feel and just be.
The word vulnerability was something that came to my mind as soon as you said it. That's in the film, but I think what we see in the film is that from vulnerability, from being able to show it and share it, from vulnerability comes strength. And I think that that's abundantly shown in the film. It's okay to cry, it's okay to moan, it's okay to say, this is something I can't do, and maybe I just can't do it right now. It's all right. From vulnerability always comes strength.
I think it's also an opportunity to grow as you're going through those really heartfelt emotions, because, you know, like, there were an array of things happening at one time, and you can identify them even in yourself. Like, I found myself tearing up for the things that I've gone through that resembled some of the things that were on screen. So it's an opportunity to kind of think about why I shy away from sharing that part of myself with people, and I stopped doing that. You know, like, it just so happened that, you know, this was just an opportunity for me to grow through the film too.
I think it made me question why. And I feel like we really need to, you know, sit back. But also when you see stuff like that, I feel like you kind of, I don't know, you're more open to trying to understand why you feel like that. And when you understand why you feel like that, I feel like you can not solve it, but almost get a way to overcome the feeling. So, yeah.
For me, I would say being okay with not being okay. Okay, let's just go a brief stat, right? Black women are dying at a ridiculous rate, right? And you're talking 36 and under. Most of it is stress, right? High blood pressure, not taking care of ourselves because we take care of everyone. And so the movie did touch on that, right? We still take care of everyone, but in that strain, we were able to be soft. And Black women, unfortunately, are not able to be soft publicly. And if we do have a sense of ownership of our anger or our emotion, just normal emotion, then we're out of place. We're angry Black women, and then we're shunned away again until we're asked to save the day. So I think the movie itself, and even negotiating what those emotions are, I would agree with Alexa, is really feeling them all, knowing that you're not monolithic. We embody all of those things, and all humans are allowed to do that, except for Black women. So it kind of gave me permission to then say, I don't want to have a cape on today, and that's okay. And I don't want to fix this, and that's okay. And I'm realizing the more that I take my cape off, people are actually okay.
Just to build off what everybody else is saying. So my background is actually in counseling. I was a counselor for like 5 years. So I'll say, feel the feelings, but give the feeling a name. So identify the feeling, because it doesn't really make sense to feel what you can't identify, right? And then spend some time with it. Put a name on it and spend some time with it, because a lot of times we think we're the only person who feels a certain way, or we might be the only person who feels a certain way. And regardless, the feeling in itself is valid. So I think as Black women especially, we have to get into the habit of validating our own feelings and understanding that we don't need anybody else to agree or affirm how we feel. The fact that we feel it itself is enough. Yes. So the way we do that is by naming how we feel and spending time with how we feel.
Thank you all. So, guiding this conversation, I kind of want to stay on the same page, but I really want to talk more so about what this means for you women, as women, to see Black ladies leading these roles. What do you think this does for not just yourselves, but your families and generations to come, to see these roles being depicted on screen?
So for me, I love seeing Black women on screen. As someone who a lot of us are, we're the first people to do what it is that we do. It's always like, you never got to see the person, so you had to be the person. And I think it's really powerful to be able to see the person and have something to aspire towards, to be able to show my niece, look at this, and they all look like her. You know, there's not the one token Black woman with the attitude and the big earrings. Everybody looks like us. So it's cool to not always have to just be the person, to be able to sit back and be fed by someone else's art and they look like you.
For me, being born in the 70s, not seeing many Black women in any position on film and in our communities oftentimes, For me, it was, I've already said it was amazing and it was inspirational, but my hope is that with this movie, we don't have to fight as much to get into those positions. And I've seen some of the reviews and some of the actresses and the producers say how much they had to fight just to put this movie on. Here in Buffalo, there's a local group that had to fight as Black women in order to have an all-Black cast on a stage. You have to fight to be you and to be great and to just talk about who you are and what your experiences are. We should not have to do that much fighting. That's stress. That's what's killing us. You know, that's what is passing down this trauma, this generational trauma, is this fight and then the fear, because we don't want our kids to go through this fight. But we have to be present in order to make that stance. In order to have the CEO of what's the nonprofit that United Way. We have a CEO of United Way in Buffalo, New York, of all places. Now I'm sure she had to fight. Prayerfully, the next person won't have to fight that much.
Okay. Being the oldest person in the room. Born in whatever. I was born in the 1800s. You know, we talk about our struggles and what we've won and what we've lost and what we fight for. And when I was asked to give a little bit of information for the bio introduction, I was reminded of a couple of things that I hadn't thought about in a while. I went to see the movie with my husband, and I enjoyed it. I want to see it again. He enjoyed it. We want to see it again. But what bothered me was seeing Black men and women fighting each other. It was hard for me to say, okay, that's a part of the training. It wasn't part of, for the Okonji, that was a part of their training. But it took me back to my first marriage, which was an ugly, ugly thing, and there was violence in that first marriage, and I started feeling some things that I had a problem with, but it's a problem I've dealt with in the past, and I put a name to it, so I know what it is, and I think that I've handled it, and still, in watching that movie and seeing these men and women fighting each other, that was hard for me. But I thought about something else aside from that. When I was asked to do the bio, a little bit of information for the bio, I thought about how difficult it was for me to resign from Buffalo Public Schools. I was a teacher. I had wanted to be a teacher since second grade. My parents wanted me to be a teacher. I met teachers who wanted me to be a teacher too, and I had some good teachers. And I love teaching. Grades 7 through 12, the hardest ones. Loved them, loved them, loved them, loved every moment of my teaching career. But during that time, I also discovered storytelling. And I thought too, maybe I could make a living telling stories. And it was hard for a lot of people to think that made sense. It made sense to me, and I knew it would be hard. I had 3 teenagers, I was divorced by myself, blah, 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 blah. And I had a lot of naysayers who really didn't understand what storytelling was about, how there's power in storytelling. I could teach through storytelling. Stories are told in every culture in the world. That's how we pass on history and traditions, and so many wonderful things. It was hard for me to get people to understand that, including members of my family, some of them who thought, Karima doing it again. There she goes, she crazy. Can't you wait 8 more years to your retirement and then don't mess up your money, blah, 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 blah. But I'm glad that I decided to resign and to be a storyteller. It was mentioned that storytelling took me around the country and out of the country. New Orleans wasn't the only place. I'm a part of the National Association of Black Storytellers, so I was able to tell stories in Chicago, DC, Baltimore, Los Angeles, Las Vegas, and then storytelling took me out of the country. Ghana, Nigeria, Senegal, Republic of the Gambia, Morocco. I mean, I've been west and I've been north. I haven't been east yet or south, but storytelling has taken me to so many wonderful places. I've met so many beautiful people. I've told stories and I've learned stories. But more than anything, I've learned more about myself as well as learning about others. Stories are who we are. Stories are who we be. Stories are who we've been and who we're gonna be. So I'm proud to be a storyteller. I'm glad I resigned from teaching in the Buffalo Public Schools 8 years before retirement. Now I've been retired for a while. But in watching that film, I saw women who I admired. Viola Davis can do anything.
Yes.
And I believe that Black women can be who they want to be, can do what they want to do, can aspire to greatness in so many ways. And sometimes getting others to understand that can be a struggle, but we're up for the struggle. Luta continua. The struggle continues. But in embracing the struggle, that's how we move forward. That's how we survive. That's how we show others who we are, who we've been, and who we can be. Thank you for listening to my rant.
For me, I'm noticing a lot of the things that we're saying is all like relative to what it is that I'm putting together in my head too. And I like to think that I am a first, I guess, in this realm, trying to figure out how to get the village back together. But I'll be honest, my ancestors did it first, and I see that on the big screen, we're able to kind of identify where those things have come from. But for me, I feel like it's in me so deeply that I'm willing to fight and struggle, and that's the only fight that I have. So everybody else has to act right, you know, like the dog, the cat, the turtle, the man, the woman, the kids, all have to be good because the only fight I have is for the system. So, I mean, we have been fighting for a long time, but I'll be damned if that little girl has to still do the same stuff that I'm doing now. You know, like, I think that we, as the first, in a sense, we've been divinely led to do the things that we do. And, you know, like, I have been chosen to lead moms. Like, that is mind-blowing for me. But, I mean, seeing it on the big screen, I realize that I've identified myself as the haughty know-it-all, and I've also been the leader. So now I'm kind of like trying to find my way back into being the servant leader that I know I need to be. And a lot of that movie shows me how we keep our women warriors together. Starting with that feisty little girl I got, you know? So, I mean, I'll be honest, it's a lot of emotions that I feel for pulling Black mothers and Black women together. But I also realize that, like, it's something I have to do. I can't possibly not do it. So I have to stay here and talk about it until I can figure out better ways to do it. But all of the emotions I feel are necessary to push me forward. And it's necessary for me to get my message out. And it's necessary for me to be the person that I say I am, because integrity is like number one. But also realizing that, like, as I'm growing and learning and maturing, so are my children, and so are the mothers, and so are the people that are around me all the time. And that's what makes it all possible, and it all makes it worth it, to be honest.
I think the most
thing that like hit me is the sisterhood, but I think a little bit more is like me seeing the fight, and it kind of hurt my feelings just a tad bit, because I always do wonder why so much. I mean, seeing certain scenes kind of triggered me, and it kind of made me like, why? But like for me personally, the men and women fighting really bothered me. It really did. And it kind of just made me like, why? I question all these emotions I have on a daily basis. Identify them. I cannot identify them some days, but I will tell you, I think that's what hit me the most. And then the sisterhood thing, because I have sisters, and I feel like sometimes as a black girl, I'm put against them all day long. So I feel like seeing that, it kind of hit me, and it made me really, really happy, or like I had a sense of relief by the end of it. Like, not the movie, because I didn't stay that long, but by the end of my time there. So, yeah.
I think my response is actually going to piggyback on a lot of what has been said, especially the fight. So as of today, well not today, a week ago or two, I'm Shay's first ever costume designer. Black women at that. But what that role meant to me, and how this film has actually informed that, is representation means everything. Prior to my joining the team for the play, our stories were being told through a different lens, one that was very inaccurate and hurtful. And I found myself having a heavy responsibility to bring those stories to life in a really authentic way, in a way that we understood it, in a way that made sense to us. And I feel like this film adequately does that because it puts us in those positions. And so while the fighting scenes were really hard to watch, for me, it was actually like that's what Black women go through. That is actually how we fight our men, and that is actually how our men fight us. And I feel as though, this is going back slave trade, Middle Passage, Reconstruction era, when Black men were taken off the plantations and sold, and the Black women pretty much had to bear the children, raise the children, and then lose some of their sons as well, or being, pillaged and RAPED'd. On the plantations, there was some animosity, between the Black man and the Black woman, some of which we still have yet to heal from, some of which Black women took blame for whatever reason, and having autonomy of their bodies and their spaces. And so for that film, to me, and the spaces that we take up now in representation, I feel like it actually folds into one another, that it's important for us to, one, tell our stories, it's important for us to hold space, but the family dynamic of what Black women and Black men are for each other, it is building, it's growing, but as Black women are taking up more spaces, and as we are getting more recognition for the things that we're doing, I don't want our Black men to resent us in that way. I don't want us to go backwards. And so that fighting scene to me was like, that's what it actually looks like internally when Black women are now in the forefront. I mean, we've been in the forefront, but we're getting acknowledged for being in the forefront and not emasculating our men or having our men feel emasculated. So for me, I balance between the two. I'm sure some women here, even in just relationships, friendships, you kind of have to balance the two, that I can be great and so can you. And that it's actually okay if we take the lead and be in front and be acknowledged for that, and still having someone to, hold us up in those moments, so we still have the opportunity in the spaces to be vulnerable.
That really kind of hit me when you said the fighting in the movie is what we're doing in real life. You said it reflected what you feel like Black women deal with every day, and that's how we fight our men. For some reason, that really kind of took it to a more somber place. So I'm wondering, what do you ladies think Black men can do to hold space for women in leadership, Black women in leadership? How can they support us and make sure that they're uplifting us when we're on the battlefield?
Beautiful question.
So I feel like there's a lot of internalized oppression that we still, as Black people, have to deal with on a daily basis, right? It might be comments we make about the shade of each other's skin. It might be expecting each other to sound a certain way when you speak, or not sound a certain way when you speak. I think before we can even get to the point where it's like, what can black men do for black women, and what can black women do for black men, it's like we have to deal with the oppression that we are still inflicting on ourselves and on each other. We gotta be honest about it, and we have to heal from it. A lot of the comments about the movie stems from the fact that the Dahomey tribe historically helped, they sold other Africans into the slave trade. We have to be real about the things that we were willing to do and had to do to survive. We have to understand that our role as black people, not just in America, but alive, black people who are living, is not to survive. We are meant for way more than simply survival. And I think once we can get out of that perpetual state of just like needing to survive, needing to do what we gotta do so we can just make it to tomorrow, we can actually get to the point of like, how do we actually feed each other? Like, how do we uplift each other? Like, how can we uplift each other if the foundation's broken? We gotta tear it down and rebuild it. So before I can even say, black men, this is what I need from you, like, black men, y'all gotta heal, and I gotta heal, and like, we all have to heal, so we can even know what it is that we need, so we can take those oppressive systems and expectations off of ourselves. Like, imagine what we can do for each other when our minds are not caged in by the oppression that we've been dealing with historically. Like, I don't even know what could possibly happen. I don't even know what a black man could give me if he was not fighting the system every single day, every time we left the house. So I think we got to take a few steps back. And before we even get to what you can do for me and what I can do for you, we got to heal.
Amen.
That times 1,000. I mean, we've had centuries of oppression and breaking down the union of the black man and the black woman, and always being pitted against each other. Well, if you're doing this, then I can't do that, and if you're doing that, then I can't do this. That just needs to stop, and it is a personal thing, understanding your own value, what you are able to bring to a relationship. So it's not a matter of what can a black man do. One, what can you do for yourself? And then, what can you do for your partner? You want to lift each other up. I can only speak to my experience. I've been in relationships where I didn't have that. Thank God for almost 30 years, I'm in a relationship where it's always been a partnership. We're not against each other, We've taken our turns to be in the spotlight in our respective fields, and only recently did we decide, wait a second, why are we taking turns? Let's do it together. We're partners, and it's finding someone who's willing to work with you.
Yes.
And it doesn't have to be a romantic relationship. It can be a community, a village. Find people that want to work with you and are going to lift you up. You don't want to, they say fly with the eagles. So find people who are flying the way that you want to fly. So as a community, we have to let all that pride, kind of ego, and well, you got that. I really wanted that, so I'm going to make sure that I don't talk to you because we can't have the same thing. No, let it go. This is all about all of us working together so the community can be uplifted. And when that ego falls away and we are really in tune with who we are, and we are in tune with what's in our heart and what we're here for, let me say it again. When we are in tune with what we are here for individually, then we can come together. And we're not looking at everybody else to tell us what we're supposed to do, when we're supposed to retire, what job we're supposed to be doing. No, you know what's in your heart. Follow your heart. And everybody else that's supposed to be along there with you, will come.
That was really good. Yeah. When you're supposed to retire, when you're supposed to marry, etc., etc., etc. Know yourself. Know what you have to offer. I'm piggybacking on what you said. Many of you know my husband. A lot of you know Baba. Baba was in prison for almost 4 decades. When I met him, however, I was impressed with his knowledge. I was impressed with his ability to speak. I was impressed with his love for our history and culture. I was impressed with a lot that I saw he had to offer. And I was thinking too, here's somebody who shouldn't be in a prison, who should be out there in the community, making a wonderful contribution. So when I took an interest in him, and that was to get him out of prison, once again, there she go again. She crazy. I was crazy for this, I was crazy for that, I was crazy for even talking to him, I was crazy for supporting his release. But I knew my value and I knew my worth and I recognized and respected his. And so I worked for that. And eventually, he got out that prison after 37 years. What can a man do for me? What can I do for myself? I was interested in having a partner. I wasn't expecting to marry someone who was in prison, but God knows what God knows, and God gives you what you need. And when you rest in that and rely on that, and do what my mama always said, put God first and keep it moving, you can't go wrong. So you put God first, you keep it moving. What can a man do for me? Love and respect me. And I will love and respect him as well. And that's what's happening, that's what's up, and that's what works. And in the village, that's what always works.
All right, so I'll just be honest. I went through a lot last year, and it really gave me clarity on who I am. A man can't do much for me if I can't do it for myself. So I created within myself peace. And even going through a separation, even going through all of the things that I went through last year, the experiences were all necessary for me to grow. So now, moving forward, I realize that is my duty as a human being, just being good to people. So I take it one step at a time. You know, I don't fight my ex. I don't fight my children. I don't fight the people in my life. I meet them where they are. I'm very clear on what I stand for, and I'm very clear on who they are at that moment. I don't fight because I feel like the village needs each other, and it's what's always worked in my life. I didn't have a village, so my village had holes in it. So I end up filling it with the good people, the people who are willing to fly with us. But I also realize that I'm not a menace to the village either. You know, I try to make sure that I'm good and true to who I am every day. You know, so if I'm good to me, I'm gonna be good to you too.
The one word that kept coming to me was safety. I think it's so important that friendships, relationships, marriages, that you hold space for each other and that there's a place of safety for one another. To be able to fall apart, to be able to be completely undone, to just be probably your worst self in a safe space and knowing that that person loves you enough to hold that space for you and sometimes love you back until you can find yourself again. I think those are the things that will help build our communities, our villages, is having and holding that safety for one another. As far as for, I would say as a Black woman, I think too often we give from empty cups. And because we are already in reserve, and then we're giving even more, so now we're giving from a negative balance, and so the things that we produce after that comes in a negative way. So for me, I think it's important for everyone to have a full cup, right? But specifically for Black women to keep their cups full, and that means of all of you, right? So your happiness, the way you look, the way you carry yourself, your feelings, your peace, even if you want solitude, all those things add full. And then whatever pours over is the things that you're able to share. Because if you have an overflow, then you have something to actually give. I know for me, doing so much, being a mom, wife, and all the things, I was giving from an empty cup for years. And my body told on me, my health told on me, my relationship told on me, just everything. And once I started making it a conscious effort to keep my bowl full, my cup full, and really being a safe space for myself at many a times, then it allowed me to open up to allow other people to be safe spaces for me, whether it be my sisters, whether it be my friends, my partner, and things like that. But we gotta be able to hold space for each other and just an open, honest, be vulnerable. I need someone to, put my head on, and you're not like, Phylicia, what's wrong with you today? And just sit there and let me do it. And if we can do that for each other as a community, it just changes everything.
We're talking a lot about villages and community, which I love to hear. And I know you mentioned that you said at a point in time your community felt like it had holes. But sometimes your community can be one or two other people. I don't think if you have anyone by your side, I don't think you could ever have a gap in your village. And I want to ask you guys now, what family dynamics in the movie at least did you notice that were contributing to the village that was the kingdom that we saw? What things did you see on screen? We talked about sisterhood, the dynamics between Black men and women in the movie. What were the redeemable values in those family dynamics? Maybe that we can implement here today.
Do you want to start that?
Not being alone. Sometimes when you fight so often, a place of solitude becomes your place of peace and safety, and it actually does the opposite of what you are thinking it's supposed to do. So to see the women always kind of like have each other's back, even in the quiet times, you knew someone had you. That thing matters. It matters, and it's showing up for each other in a real way. And I think even when, again, it wasn't always, sometimes it was like, girl, we about to, but then other times it was just like, give us some time. But I knew that my sisters were outside that door, they were outside of that, my little hut, they were there. And I knew that if anything happened right now, regardless of what we had going on, she got my back. And I think for those relationships, you need to have that, we're gonna fight, let's fight. Let's scrap it up. But my sister has my back. She's gonna hold space for me. I'm not alone. Yeah. And loneliness is not something to strive for. It's the community that you need to strive for. You can take care of space and your time, but always fall back into your community. And I think that just makes a difference.
Amen.
I think it's me personally, I have a lot of siblings. So I'm gonna back up what you said. Me and my sisters do fight a lot. I will add my mom into this. Even in my darkest, deepest times, the days when I'm not feeling like talking, the days when I don't feel like being bothered, I know she's still there. I think that's a very important feeling to have, because sometimes you can feel like nobody's there, but at the end of the day, she's still there. In the midst of everything that's happening, in the midst of what's going on with her, me, together, I just think that's very important. I think that dynamic is very important. So,
Sometimes I think the fight is important for us to just get it out. So, even though, you have that fight, it's really important for you to, you might not be able to identify why you're mad, frustrated, but you have to have somebody that's there. So when I said I had holes in my village, it was really because the people that were right, to the right or to the left of me could not figure me out. So I had all this rage and all of this, and you know what I mean? And I could not identify it. So for me, becoming a better village member is what happened after all of that. My daughter, and I can go at it like two cats. But at the end of the day, she knows that she can count on me. And because of that, she'll be better, hopefully, to other people, you know? And I know that I'm better because of the fight that I had before, you know, couldn't identify it, understanding that it was such a big emotion and no one was willing to help me unpack it until I was grown. You know what I mean? So this is what I'm saying, like, sometimes that fight is important because then what bursts out of that is this. You know, I get to be her mother. I get to be the mother of two boys who don't have to wake up every day afraid and living in toxic levels of masculine stress. You know, she can be herself and they can be themselves, and I'm not going to beat them down for it. So, you know, the fight is important, but the fight gets you to where you're going.
I think I'm my own worst enemy. If I'm in a fight with anybody, it's with myself, because I have this problem with saying no. Karima, can you do this? Yes. Can you make it happen? Yes. Can you start this? Yes. I'm realizing that I really have to stop and check myself more than I do. And I need to say no more often. I've been this way since high school, and I still do it, and I still struggle with always saying yes. But there's so many wonderful things that come up that I feel I need to be a part of it, so I say yes. And then I have sleepless nights trying to figure out how to make it all work. By the grace of Allah, sometimes it does. Most times it does. But there are times when it drives me crazy. So the fight is with myself, and I think to be a better village participant, I need to say no sometimes. And I'm beginning to back up just a little bit, just a little bit, just a little bit. I'm getting better. And at my age, I need to get a whole lot better. And I'm going to keep working with that struggle within myself.
So your very first village is your family. And in the movie, the majority, I believe, of the Aborigines, they were thrown out of their families. And they were given away by their families. And I think one thing that is so important when it comes to family, and Idris and I do this as we're raising our children, is giving them the opportunity to use their voice. Giving them the opportunity to speak for themselves, to ask questions, to know that we don't have all the answers. In our communities, we're taught, do as I say, you know, because I said so. And that's what I said, this is the way it's gonna be. We don't wanna own up to the fact that we just don't have the answers, or we don't know. I'm 48, there's a whole heck of a lot that I don't know still. And even raising two kids who are now 18 and 21, I didn't know what we were doing with them. But that's what we're trying to teach them, to have a voice. One, it's okay not to know everything. Two, it's okay to ask why. Three, it's okay not to know what you want to do, but if there's something that you like, or if there's something you have an affinity towards, we're going to support it. We're going to wonder what's going on in your brain. We want to know how you're feeling. We want you to share what you're feeling. You know, our kids are creatives and they're artists, and we didn't understand that when we were younger. We didn't understand that our child, who we thought was being just simply disobedient, that was just him being overly emotional and intuitive and really understanding what we were going through, but he didn't have the words to let us know what he was going through. So we stop and we listen, and we have to encourage them to speak up for themselves. And we have to encourage them to know that they're always going to be supported by their first village. A lot of people don't have that, unfortunately. So they have to reach out to other people to get that support and to get that village. So one thing that I learned from that, and that has encouraged me to continue to be myself, let people have their voice. Meet them where they are, listen to what they're going through, encourage them, give them what I can give them, but support them.
So I think what stuck out to me is like unconditional acceptance. When you think about like the homies, like you said, a lot of them, they were coming from different villages. Maybe their villages had beef, so they were captured during the war or something like that. Imagine having a fight with somebody that you had beef with. Or like imagine finding out that the general of the army is your mother and now y'all gotta fight together. And like your life is in this person's hands. I feel like that put a lot of things into perspective because I feel like a lot of times we judge each other's life decisions by our own standards, by our own self-interest. And in that movie, they couldn't do that. It's like wherever you came from, you're here now. And we have to be able to trust each other. We have to be able to fight together. I have to know that if somebody is coming up behind me with a sword in their hand, you are going to have my back, even though you're only here because you were captured in war. Like, that's that just pure, unconditional trust and acceptance that I feel like we don't often have. And maybe it is back to because we have to survive. But I think if that's something that we can try to embed into our culture, we'd be stronger for it.
Thank you. I'm glad you guys mentioned the family being the first village that you had, because the representations of family that we've seen in the movie were a little toxic, if you think about it. The ones that were supposed to be family, and the only family dynamics we really saw that were strong were the ones that they created themselves. The soldiers at war fighting for each other, which can be reflective of our reality a lot of the time. So the last question I have for you all, and this is kind of a catch-all, but I just want to know, why do you guys think it took a Black woman to lead this type of movie and this type of revolution? It's a catch-all. So I know that's a lofty question. Does anybody want to start?
That's what I was going to say. Okay, go ahead. Oh, I don't have much to say, but I have a poem, of course. And one of the lines is, the revolution will be led by Black women who are just tired enough to do it ourselves. Because we got to do it. We don't do it, we're going to do it. Like, we're tired. So we're going to do it, and we're going to do it right. Every time.
It's time. Black women have always sat in the back, or supported, or lifted, or guided, or moved the path, or shown the light. It's time. That's what it is.
That was good. I'm being given the opportunity to portray Ida B. Wells Barnett next month. And thank you. And she was one of those who was not necessarily respected by Black men who were her contemporaries that we know and love, like Carter G. Woodson, father of Black history. He didn't think very much of her. He didn't openly diss her, but he wasn't very supportive. We love Frederick Douglass, right? But he didn't care too much for Ida B. Wells Barnett. They both said she was difficult. But she tended to be a woman who said what she meant what she said, and that was the bottom line. Her motto was, when someone tells a lie, all you need to do is shine the light of truth upon it. That'll make it clear for everybody. There are times when we are pushed to the back because we don't believe in ourselves. But like Ida B. Wells Barnett, if we believe in ourselves, shine the light of truth upon ourselves, there's nothing we can't do and there's nothing we can't be. There's power in the light and there's power in the truth.
So good.
I just think that we have been discounted a little too long. So we're done with that. Like, we can see the way clear as day, right? And somebody come messing it all up, talking about, you don't know what you're talking about. Well, all of us know what we're talking about. And we about tired, so move on.
I felt like it was the only way to do it because me, if it was named just the king, I would have definitely asked, why can't Mommie be in it? Yeah, I just think it was the way to go, especially being a female, and then on top of that, you're black. So think of the trials and tribulations you have to go through to do that. So yeah, I feel like it was just the only way.
I'm gonna piggyback off of that last statement because just the way society is kind of totem poled, Black women actually would fall at the bottom, right? Because it's like you have two negative identities against you. You're black and you're a woman. And isn't that what they say? I forgot what movie that was. She black and she a woman. You know what I mean? So I think what has happened is, or what has been happening, America was built on the backs of black women, right? Even if you go back down to in Virginia when they used to have the breeding farms. I mean, we don't have to really go into detail on that, right? Can we talk about that? So the population of slaves that were able to be increased so drastically is because black women had to literally get on their back to do it. And so from that, just rearing up masses children, right? Even in having to discount our own children and ignore them. We've been doing the work. We've been being the platform and the foundation. And for many times, because we don't want to emasculate our men, we don't want to take away from them and still allow them to have their space, we've willfully taken back seats. And because of that, sometimes we've been discounted or looked at as not important as, or not as educated as, or not holding space as much as. And I think it's just, at this point, it's time. It's almost not even time, it's almost inevitable. Because at some point, if black women just stop, this world ceases to exist.
That's right. Yep.
And I think it was proven for the elections last year. It's been proven, right? And you can't kind of like coast over it anymore. You can't hire the black secretary and take all her notes and then put a president out in front and like that. It just can't happen anymore. So I think it was inevitable. I think it's a natural progression of the way in which the world is moving. I am happy about it. Because we should be able to take up space and be in the forefront and not be seen as a deterrent for, the black race, or this is how it actually has always been. And this is gonna sound so bad because I love Father's Day and I love fathers, but when they go up to the stage, who they thanking?
That's right. Thank you, Mom.
Daddy could have been right there, but Mom, because Mom made miracles every Thanksgiving, and I think that's just in one household, but to be honest, we've made miracles in America. We've made miracles across the country, and it's just, shh, those are my babies, see? Nicholas, stop. Okay. So I feel like those miracles have been happening and have been taking place and continue to take place, and so it just was no way for it to be undercover anymore, so.
That's right.
Sheets off.
Tribulations and trauma can be the biggest force for our drive. That's what I get. And I feel like as black women, we are the alchemists in that sense. We can turn that pain into something that people can't even recognize. They don't understand it. So I appreciate you all being here today because we all have a story. And I'm glad I got to hear a little bit of each of yours. And I'm glad I got to hear a little bit of what you guys thought about the women on screen.
Beautiful.
Thank you.